welcome to Fraud Friday. I'm Bob Coleman. We're talking loan fraud, bankers, public officials, and borrowers who got caught. Michael Wayne, I'm going to give it a shot. Delaney Boudikofer. Do we like that?
Boudikofer, yeah, that works.
I like it.
This is, by the way, we're recording this on Halloween, so Delaney is in her minion costume, and I think she looks great.
I like it.
Thank
Dad,
you.
you should
Happy Halloween.
Yeah, you should be very proud of her. Hey, let's get to this seriously. This guy's a piece of work. He's sentenced to 15 years, 8 months restitution. He'll never pay $500,000. That means they found it. Delaney, what is Michael Wayne Boudikofer all about?
Well, we're in for a long one because you could say he was committing crimes till the cows come home.
Oh, I like that.
So, to start off, he had kind of a fraudulent cattle business. And so I'm going to use the judge's phrase. They called it somewhat of a Ponzi scheme. So what
With
this
cows?
was. Yes.
With cows? Okay.
It's
Thank
a
you,
first for
Delaney.
me,
That's-
too.
This is a true, well, I was going to say all hat, no cattle. Looks like there's cattle there. Go ahead, Delaney.
Well, you're not completely wrong. So Fawn Hollow was a custom cattle feeding operation. So essentially, he did all the work. He'd raise the cows, care for them. He would sell them, but none of these cows were his. These were all investors' cows. So like you said, all had no cattle. He did not have any. And he managed to convince them to let him sell the cattle under his own name, which is not a very good move because he ended up converting all of those proceeds from those 8 investors for his own use. That ended up being $2.5 million.
Delaney, I'm a city guy. What's a cow worth? I have no idea.
I think it would
hang
depend, but thousands and thousands of dollars.
Oh, hold
depending
on.
breed
Lance
Hang
from
on, y'all
rural
can
Arkansas is going to answer that question.
I was gonna
I'm
say,
gonna guess 5 to 10. 5 to 10.
5 to 10,000.
Yes.
I don't think so, but cattle prices are at the highest level in a long time. I had the conversation with my brother Mike. He's in the furniture business, Delaney's uncle, and he's got 500 or 600 cows, and he sells them. But if you want the exact price, Bob, I can call and get it for you.
All right.
All right.
So, but
I had an estimation about 2,500 to about 4,500. I definitely was swinging a little high there.
No, that is 2,500 to 5,000 is what I've kind of heard.
Go ahead, Delaney.
Well, he did not end with defrauding those investors. He went ahead and defrauded the USDA as well. He got $1.2 million out of this one. And so this was another emergency COVID program. It was the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program. And how this one worked is essentially on a per head basis for these cows. It had to be eligible beef cattle. He would get payments for each of them, but he was submitting these applications under the name of another individual. He did not own the cattle, but he did take home over $1 million.
And our equal opportunity fraudster committed SBA loan fraud.
He sure did. He got $1.5 million out of this one. He was making false representations about his financial conditions. It's a pretty traditional case of loan fraud that we've seen. But interestingly, when he got that money, that same month, he used it to file for bankruptcy. I'm not sure if that's an eligible business expense.
That has been a no-no historically, SBA use of proceeds, and it doesn't matter what loan program it is, cannot be used to pay past due taxes, can't be used for bankruptcy filings. Interesting guy. But I suppose somebody advised him to file bankruptcy so SBA couldn't come after him on the idle loans.
Delaney, I was going to say, Delaney, what did he spend his money on? What can you buy from a farm in rural Iowa?
That's a great question. I'm actually not 100% sure what he did with all of the money. I know it was for personal use.
I know, I saw that. We don't know. An upstanding citizen, I like this. He perjured himself not once, but 5 times. Tell me about that.
5 times. And this is not the last time we'll hear about him messing around with court proceedings. But he was submitting false and fraudulent information about his business, and he had more than 100 creditors.
Wow.
And he was using this case to delay all of their valid collection efforts.
And you mentioned the preview of not being an upstanding citizen. Was he a good employer?
No, this is where it starts to get a little bit messy. He would get migrant workers to come live on his farm, and he was supposed to provide them, decent living conditions, humane living conditions, but that was not really the case here. They didn't have hot water, furniture, their water was contaminated. And not only that, he frequently threatened them. In one case, he actually assaulted a worker, grabbed him by the shirt, and tried to push him towards a corn auger, which, in case you don't know, Dad, would you like to explain?
Yeah, please.
A corn auger, I wish we had somebody from the Midwest, but my understanding is you put corn in there and it takes the corn off the husk.
It's like kind of a helix spiral type blade. I would not want to be caught in it for sure.
Yeah, it's a blade that goes around like a corn cob and cuts the corn off the cob.
Lance, let's take this back to the real issue. Is we talk about these cases, characters the first see. How in the world, with this background, do we make these type of loans? And I say we as a collective industry, both USDA and SBA. Why do we make these type of loans to these type of characters? Are they just that smart to get under the radar, or we're not doing our job?
Well, I'm going to be real honest with everybody, Bob, Delaney, Anna, people on the program. SBA puts things in place to prevent someone like this from getting an idle loan, from getting a PPP loan, from getting a 7A loan, but sometimes the implementation of their fraud. So most of the fraud protections in the pandemic lending, most of them came into play in the latter part of 2020, early 2021. Well, this guy was probably he had already sold the cows fraudulently. He had already gotten a USDA loan fraud or USDA. So if you're a farmer, and my brother didn't do this, but he should have, and he could have legally, if you're a farmer with beef cattle, you could get a certain amount per cow during the pandemic from USDA. As much like the PPP loan program. But the fraud, SBA's 19-point data check should have and probably could have caught this guy, but I'm guessing he probably got the idle loans in 2020 before that was fully implemented.
Well, he
did, and I'd like to actually elaborate. He has a lot of crimes going, but I don't think any of these were really uncovered. I think it all came out at the same time. So in that case, what would you do?
Well,
I see Delaney. Go ahead, Lance.
I'm sorry, Bob. The new SBA eligibility requirements. Are you currently under indictment for fraud? Are you in jail? But the old deal, have you ever been convicted of a felony and then they dig in and check it out? Well, this guy probably would pass, not now, but at the time of the idle application, at the time of the USDA application, he probably would have passed.
Yeah, the standard on that is, are you currently under indictment? Are you in jail? SBA has relaxed their criminal justice impacted standards to let borrowers get money. That, frankly, Lance, I don't have too much of a problem with them. Yeah. If someone does their time and they understand they made a mistake, we need to get them back into society if they're willing to follow the rules. This gentleman, not to be outdone, Delaney, I'm going to let you finish up here. I see a note here. He contacted witnesses in violation of a court order. Tell me about that.
I'm going to clean up on the last part just really quick because there was one more thing I thought was interesting. Please. While he was on federal pretrial release, he continued to recruit workers to the point where Homeland Security was sending agents to rescue these workers from him.
It's terrible.
Oh,
it's terrible.
Goodness.
Yes, and then as you said, during his detention hearing, he was contacting witnesses. He was trying to convince these witnesses on the grand jury and trial witnesses to make false statements and make or sign false documents. And luckily, I think this is the end of the crimes, and hopefully there will not be more while he's in prison.
Delaney,
But
how did that work out for him? Contacting a grand jury juror to make a false statement. How did that work out for him?
not very well. I don't think any of this worked out very well for him.
Unbelievable. Well, excellent reporting. We make light of this sometimes because the stories are incredible, and the bottom line is people get hurt. The bottom line is investors lost what, $2.5 million? Yeah, $2.5 million, and those savings they're not coming back, Lance.
Oh, every fraud story has, Bob, we've been doing this for a long time. Delaney's been doing it with us for a long time. And a lot of these stories make me smile, initially, but it always comes back to somebody gets hurt, somebody loses money, somebody loses their job, or in this case, you had people lose money, the investors in the cattle. You had employees who were not treated properly. So somebody gets hurt in all these. Like I said, sometimes we smile at the cool cars they buy and the houses they buy, or we laugh. In this case, Bob, the guy has cows. I'm surprised he don't have a llama or some other animal
alpacas.
Involved. But alpacas. We had an alpaca story one time, but they sometimes make us smile. But in the end, somebody gets hurt.
And ripping off SBA and the USDA, that causes problems because when the next disaster comes around, people say, oh, that's that fraudulent idle. Oh, no, that's a fraudulent program. We can't support that. And then people who need those disaster funds are not in a position to obtain them. Thank you very much for joining. Go ahead, Lance.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Bob. I get excited about fraud, but one thing is going to happen to him too. He's going to jail, but if he ever gets out of jail because he defrauded USDA, because he defrauded SBA, he's not going to be able to get a house loan. He's not going to, there are so many things that we think of as normal activities. Those are over for this gentleman.
Thank you for clarifying that. That is the third triad of what is an ineligible criminal impacted person. If they've been convicted of a false statement to the government, they are ineligible for any future SBA, USDA financing. Thank you for joining us today for Fraud Friday, so you can stop criminals from stealing from your bank.
Have a great weekend.